was Charles Darwin? How did he change the world? And why should you care? Charles Darwin was a British naturalist born in 1809 who changed our understanding of life on this planet forever. For example, he helped us discover that humans didn't just appear out of nowhere, but rather evolved over millions of years from a common ancestor that also gave rise to giraffes, whales, and yes, bacteria. More on that in a bit. The story of Darwin begins in 1831 when he joined a ship called the HMS Beagle for a 5-year journey around the world to explore South America. As it turns out, Darwin had an interest in geology and fossils, so he took with him a copy of a book about the subject. But what does the story of a guy reading a book on a boat have to do with the origins of life? You might be thinking that's a pretty weak intro to a video about evolution. Well, here's where it gets interesting. On board that very same ship, Darwin also brought a copy of Paradise Lost by John Milton, an epic poem about Adam and Eve that details the creation of the world and humanity's fall from grace. What better way to explain life on Earth than a good old creation story, right? Well, after sailing around South America collecting specimens and conducting research, Darwin would return home in 1836 with enough material to fill 13 volumes. And as he sifted through his findings, something struck him. It was like a light bulb moment. All the different species of plants and animals he had collected from around the globe seemed to fit into a single pattern, suggesting they had all evolved from a common ancestor over millions of years. But there was a problem. At the time, the prevailing belief was that each species had been created separately and was immutable, meaning it couldn't change over time. This view was based on the biblical account of creation and was widely held by both scientists and the general public. However, Darwin wasn't convinced. And after years of reflection and further study, he developed a new idea to explain the diversity of life on Earth, which he called natural selection. Natural selection is the process by which organisms with traits better suited to their environment survive and reproduce at a higher rate than organisms less suited to their environment. This leads to the gradual accumulation of beneficial traits in a population over time, ultimately resulting in the evolution of new species. So let's take a closer look at this big idea. Imagine a population of beetles. Some are green and some are brown. They live in an environment where the trees are also green. The green beetles are better camouflaged than the brown ones, meaning that they are less likely to be eaten by birds. As a result, they survive longer and reproduce more successfully. Over time, the proportion of green beetles in the population increases because they are better adapted to their environment. Eventually, the green color becomes the norm, and if the environment changes, say the trees turn a different color, the brown beetles might become better camouflaged and start to outnumber the green ones. That's how natural selection works. It's all about survival of the fittest. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that, but you get the idea. Now here's where things get interesting. Darwin realized that this process of natural selection could explain not only the similarities and differences between species, but also how life on Earth diversified into the vast array of forms we see today. Basically, he was saying that all species on Earth evolved from a common ancestor through natural processes acting over vast stretches of time. When Darwin first presented his ideas to the scientific community, they were met with mixed reaction. Some scientists were intrigued, while others were skeptical or even outraged. But Darwin wasn't deterred. In 1859, he published his findings in a book titled On the Origin of Species, which quickly became the most influential book of the 19th century. It overthrew centuries-old beliefs about the creation of life and established evolution as a unifying principle of biology. So let's take a deeper dive into the impact of Darwin's ideas. Imagine you're walking through a forest and you see a bird eating a worm. You might think, well, that's just what birds do. But from Darwin's perspective, that simple act is a testament to the power of natural selection. Birds that were better at catching worms, whether through sharper eyesight, stronger beaks, or more agile bodies, were more likely to survive and reproduce. Over time, this led to the evolution of birds with traits better suited to their diet of worms. And that's just one example. Darwin's theory applies to all life on Earth, from the smallest bacteria to the largest whales. It helps us understand how species adapt to their environments and how they change over time. And it's not just about the physical traits of organisms, but also their behavior and physiology. For example, Darwin's ideas can help us understand how antibiotic resistance evolves in bacteria, or how pesticide resistance evolves in insects. Of course, Darwin wasn't the first person to propose a theory of evolution. The idea that life on Earth might change over time had been around in various forms for centuries. But Darwin's contribution was to provide a mechanism for how evolution occurs, namely natural selection. He showed that evolution doesn't require a special creator or a perfect plan. It happens gradually and incrementally through the interaction of organisms with their environment. One of the most significant impacts of Darwin's ideas was the challenge it posed to traditional religious beliefs about the origins of life. According to the biblical account, humans were created by God in their current form about 6,000 years ago. Darwin's theory, on the other hand, suggested that humans evolved gradually over millions of years from earlier forms of life. This was a radical idea that went against the teachings of many religions. In some circles, Darwin's ideas were met with fierce opposition, and the theory of evolution became a source of major controversy and debate. For example, the theory of evolution was seen as a threat to the authority of the church and the traditional order of society. In fact, when Darwin published his ideas, he received anonymous death threats from people who believed that he was trying to undermine the foundations of morality and religion. Despite the controversy, Darwin's ideas were supported by an increasing number of scientists and intellectuals, and the theory of evolution gradually became more widely accepted over time. Nevertheless, the debate between science and religion over the origins of life continues to this day. It's important to note that Darwin wasn't trying to disprove the existence of God or the validity of religious beliefs. Rather, he was trying to explain the natural world based on his observations and the evidence available to him. Darwin himself held a complex view of religion, and he was careful to avoid language that could be seen as offensive or heretical. In fact, he wrote to a friend that he had never been an atheist in the sense of denying or ignoring the existence of a higher power. Rather, he said that he had become convinced that the true nature of the Creator, whatever it might be, is not a person with human characteristics, but is inscrutable to us. In the end, Darwin's ideas forced a re-examination of the relationship between humanity and the natural world. By showing that humans are just one species among many, and that we evolved through the same processes as other life on Earth, Darwin opened up new ways of thinking about our place in the universe. Now let's talk about Darwin the person. He was born in 1809 and grew up in England during the 19th century. Despite coming from a wealthy family, Darwin was not interested in pursuing a career in business or politics. Instead, he wanted to be a doctor, so he studied medicine at Edinburgh University. However, he soon found the study of medicine boring and began to spend more time exploring the countryside around Edinburgh. It was during these explorations that Darwin developed an interest in geology and fossils, which led him to join the HMS Beagle. But Darwin's passion for science came at a personal cost. During the voyage of the Beagle, he contracted an insect bite that nearly killed him. While recovering, he realized that his health was fragile and that he needed to make changes to his lifestyle. Although he had planned to continue his work in science, Darwin became a semi-invalid and had to take a break from his research. However, he soon returned to his work with renewed vigor, publishing several influential papers on topics such as coral reefs and barnacles. In fact, Darwin's study of barnacles led him to develop a classification system for marine organisms that is still used today. And finally, let's talk about Darwin's legacy. The theory of evolution has stood the test of time and remains scientifically valid today. It's the foundation of modern biology and has had a profound impact on other fields such as genetics and medicine. For example, Darwin's ideas helped scientists understand the mechanisms of inheritance and the genetic basis of evolution. This knowledge has led to advances in fields such as genetic engineering and gene therapy. So there you have it, the story of Darwin, the man who changed our understanding of life on Earth. From his groundbreaking ideas on evolution to his contributions to the field of biology, Darwin's legacy continues to shape our world in profound ways. And as we continue to explore the mysteries of the natural world, we can be inspired by Darwin's courage, curiosity, and determination to uncover the truth. Hey! Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, stay curious.